Hello. That's a bit better. Uh, my talk's going to be on the secret message that's in the Blanche Soldier. Um, One of the main factors which make Casebook a special part of the canon is the inclusion of the only two stories written by Holmes himself, The Blanche Soldier and The Lion's Mane. The first of these is The Blanche Soldier, and it is unclear why he chose this story. The story is about James M. Dodd and Godfrey Emsworth, who were army pals in the Boer War. Godfrey is injured in action and is sent home. 6 months later, the war is over and Godfrey returns home. He tries to contact his old friend, but the response he gets from Godfrey's father, Colonel Emsworth, is hostile and dismissive. The Colonel tells James that Godfrey Emsworth is on a voyage around the world, but James is not convinced. Eventually, James Dodd contrives to get an invitation to the house from Godfrey's mother and goes to Tuxbury Old Hall. The Colonel continues to behave in a hostile way towards James, increasing the man's suspicions that something is amiss. The butler, Ralph, makes comments to James in private that suggest Godfrey is dead or in trouble. And then James sees Godfrey peering in at a window with a ghostly white face. He spends the next day looking for Godfrey's hiding place, finds it, and is caught slipping by the Colonel, who orders him to leave on the next available train. At this point, James Dodd seeks Holmes's assistance in making sure his friend is right. A few days later, they travel to Tuxbury Old Hall together, along with a mysterious companion Holmes has brought along. They confront the Colonel. He drops his guard when Holmes passes him a note demonstrating he knows everything. At this point, they join Godfrey, who is residing in an outhouse on the estate in the company of a doctor named Kent. A long story is told of how, after being shot at Diamond Hill with an elephant gun, Godfrey Emsworth broke into an empty house and fell asleep in an unmade bed. In the morning, he discovered a leper's hospital, and he had slept in a leper's bed. The hospital's doctor helped him get back to the British Army, who sent him home, where he began developing symptoms of leprosy. It was then that he was secretly hidden in the house, placed under the care of Mr. Kent. Secrecy was necessary to avoid him being removed from his family. Holmes brings in his mysterious companion, Sir James Saunders, an expert in leprosy, who examines Godfrey while Holmes explains how he figured everything out. Finally, Saunders announces that Godfrey does not have leprosy. He has pseudo-leprosy, or ichthyosis, and here the story ends. Holmes's selection of this story to write up doesn't make a good deal of sense. Despite Holmes's claim that it is among the strangest happenings in his collection, it is not a particularly noteworthy story. There is little action in it, nor does Holmes do very much in the way of deduction, the aspect he believed was so important. It is merely the story of a person locked down in their own home due to a highly contagious disease, an experience everyone has had. Even the style in which it is written does not make sense. As early as The Sign of the Four, Holmes chastises Watson for writing romantic adventure stories instead of concentrating on his methods of reading. And yet in The Blanche Soldier, Holmes writes the story in much the same style as Watson. He accentuates the drama and conceals his own thought process until the last few paragraphs. I found other problems with the story too. There are a smattering of inconsistencies in the text, which I will give special attention. In previous adventures, Holmes seems to distrust coincidence, but this tale ends with him suggesting that Godfrey Emsworth's contraction of ichthyosis after sleeping in a leper's bed was a coincidence. Oops. A Holmesian stance. Godfrey's father, Colonel Emsworth, is stated to have received the Crimean VC, but it is a matter of historical record that of the 111 soldiers who earned a Crimean Victoria Cross, not one was named Emsworth. During his career as a consulting detective, Holmes had been honoured by Queen Victoria, the President of France, the King of Bohemia, and a plethora of other statesmen and royals. Yet Colonel Emsworth incorrectly and unnecessarily refers to his occupation as an ignoble profession. At one point during the story, Holmes mentions 2 other cases, with a spurious indication that Watson had written one up. If he has, I have never seen it. These were the cases of the Duke of Greyminster and the Sultan of Turkey. All of these details were surplus to requirement. They must have been there for another reason. This set me to thinking about Holmes as the author of a trifling monograph, in which he analyses 160 separate ciphers. This is the man who cracked codes in the Valley of Fear, the Dancing Men, and the Glorious. Who can forget how he solved the mysterious code in the Red Circle when he demonstrated that, for example, S, as in the Sultan of Turkey, be represented by 19, as it is the 19th letter of the alphabet. So what was the real reason for Holmes writing up the story? My belief was that it was a vehicle for a coded message he had secreted in the text, and I believe I have found it. Holmes once said that from a drop of water, a logician could infer the possibility of an Atlantic or a Niagara with having seen or heard of one or the other. So all life is a great chain, the nature of which is known whenever we are shown a single link of it. I believe, as a master logician, Sherlock Holmes had managed to follow the great chain of life all the way up to the present day. Sherlock Holmes predicted COVID-19. If there is any doubt, there are other examples scattered throughout the story. The story is set at the conclusion of the Boer War in Tuxbury Old Hall, where James M. Dodd was a visitor. The year is given us 1903, which once again gives us COVID-19. Now consider Colonel Emsworth. Colonel Emsworth threatens Dodd with violence for his damned impertinence, finally ordering the young man to leave when he said, "There is a train to London at 8:30. The trap will be at the door at 8. Add the digits up in that sentence, 8 plus 3 plus 0 plus 8, and you get 19. Once again giving us COVID-19. Finally, consider the plight of Godfrey Emsworth. In reality, he is confined to an outhouse on his parents' property, but they have told everyone he is on a voyage around the world. At the end of the story, he is diagnosed with ichthyosis by a dermatologist who we are told has sphinx-like features. As previously noted, S is the 19th letter of the alphabet, which gives us COVID-19. But Holmes didn't just predict the disease. He also offered us some advice. He put some into the mouth of Godfrey Emsworth when James Dodd reaches out to him. "Don't touch me, Jimmy, keep your distance." Just as during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we were advised to keep a distance of 2 meters from each other. Then there is the disinfectant Butler Ralph douses his glove, a clear indication that we would need to be washing our hands frequently and thoroughly. It is perhaps also a nod to the necessity to use hand sanitizers wherever possible. As the local doctor locked Godfrey into the outhouse, we too found that a lockdown was necessary to reduce the spread of disease. While Holmes may have neglected to mention the advisability of wearing face masks, for a prediction about events 117 years in his future, he did pretty well. The story provides some cause for optimism too. The specialist, Sir James Saunders, describes the condition as possibly curable. This is not entirely true of either ichthyosis or COVID-19, but both are treatable. And with vaccines being rolled out, COVID becomes increasingly avoidable too. We may soon see ourselves as a global society rid of COVID-19, providing we all remain diligent, caring, and agree to work together, much as the characters in Holmes's story did. Perhaps there are more secrets about the pandemic hidden in the Blanche Soldier. More advice, formula for treatments, or predictions about how the pandemic will end. But I am not going to go looking for them. I am turning my attention to looking for the winning lottery numbers, which are hidden in men's maid. Thank you.